Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the Clinton years where Bill Clinton was president. Bill Clinton becomes president in 1993. He will be the 42nd president of the United States. We're going to watch a little short video on Bill Clinton and give you a little background information on him.
Bill Clinton is the American dream. He had no elite resources or privilege or status. He became the youngest governor in the United States. He became the third youngest president in the United States. That is a remarkable American story.
Bill Clinton was born William Jefferson Blythe III on August 19, 1946, in Hope, Arkansas. 3 months after his birth, his father died in a traffic accident. At age 4, his mother married Roger Clinton, whose last name Bill would adopt in high school.
When Bill Clinton was 17, he had the chance to travel to Washington, D.C. and meet JFK in the Rose Garden. It served to be a tremendous inspiration for Bill Clinton to enter into politics and public service.
Clinton attended Georgetown University and graduated in 1968. He then won a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford University, where he studied for 2 years before entering Yale University Law School, where he met Hillary Rodham. The two married in 1975 and welcomed their only daughter, Chelsea, 5 years later.
One way or another, Bill Clinton was going to be in politics. He was just great with people. I don't care who you were. If you said 3 words to him and he responded, you would walk away thinking, this guy was really interested in me.
It's no wonder Bill Clinton was known as the comeback kid. He ran for Congress in 1974 as a young law professor in Arkansas. He lost. 2 years later, ran for Attorney General. Then he ran for governor, won. 2 years later, he was thrown out, but then he was back again in the governor's mansion.
When Bill Clinton entered the presidential race in 1992, he was running against the very popular wartime incumbent, President George H.W. Bush, and few thought Clinton could win.
There was a kind of animation and new politics about Bill Clinton that made him appealing, particularly to younger voters.
Clinton won the 1992 presidential election in an upset victory and was sworn in as the 42nd President of the United States on January 20th, 1993, at the age of 46.
When he gave his first acceptance speech, Americans realized, my gosh, this is not the presidency we're used to. This guy's really young. Plus, his messages were very simple, like, hey, it's the economy, stupid, and people could understand all of those kitchen table issues.
Bill Clinton, in his first term, passed NAFTA, a free trade agreement which really helped the economies of North America grow. And he also committed himself to reducing budget deficits. And by the end of his term as president, he had balanced the budget. That was historic.
In November 1996, Bill Clinton became the first Democrat since FDR to win a second term as president.
His second term was overshadowed by his dalliance with a young intern named Monica Lewinsky.
Despite the Lewinsky scandal, Clinton remained an effective president. The economy soared, and in foreign policy, Clinton pursued peace in Northern Ireland, a resolution to the Bosnian-Serbian conflict, and tried to secure peace between Israel and the Palestinians. When Clinton left office, his approval ratings were some of the highest on record.
Bill Clinton, in his ex-presidency, has taken a model from Jimmy Carter in really using the prestige of that office to do enormous good in the world. The Hillary, Bill, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation does extraordinary work around the world.
History will remember Bill Clinton as one of the great politicians ever. He could appeal to particularly ordinary people and downtrodden people, people who felt left behind, and make them feel that he cared for them.
Bill Clinton is someone who has a tremendous taste for public life. If I have to describe Bill Clinton, I would describe someone who is not done yet.
So with Bill Clinton's presidency, we see the national deficit be neutralized. We see peace talks beginning in the Middle East. We see a lot of treaties being signed. During Clinton's years as president, he really focused on a lot of social issues. He and Congress will get the Family Medical Leave Act passed, which ensured that families could take time off from work in times of medical crisis or times of medical needs, and to be able to come back to their jobs. He also was able to help get the Violence Against Women Act passed. And so Clinton, during his presidency, really did a lot for women and families. So when we're talking about the Clinton years, Al Gore was Bill Clinton's running mate. He was the vice president. And Al Gore is going to really be known for three things. One, being vice president under Bill Clinton. And two, he will run for president, and we'll talk about that just a little bit later. And then number three is that Al Gore is really going to bring home to the average person the idea of global warming. He really gets the phrase out there. Scientists had already been talking about global warming, talking about the effects, and Al Gore is going to create this video and do these TED Talks, and they're called An Inconvenient Truth, where he brings basically to the United States and the world really the effects of global warming and what global warming was. And so the other thing is Al Gore, following Bill Clinton's 2 terms as president, Al Gore is going to run for president. And he will be up against George W. Bush. And when the election happens, what's going to come out of this election, we'll go into this more when we get to George W. Bush's presidency, is that Al Gore will actually win the popular vote. He will win the majority of the votes from the people within the United States, but he loses the Electoral College vote. So George W. Bush wins. There was a lot of factors that went into this election. There was going to be a lot of problems that happened with this election in a county in Florida. There were votes that they weren't sure would be counted correctly. You had something called hanging chads. What this was is that the old ballots used to have to punch through the hole. If you don't punch all the way through the hole, there's a little tiny bit of the paper that hangs, and that's called a chad. And so there's this thing of where should we count those or not count those, because the election literally came down to these votes in Florida. This issue, the election, is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court on whether or not they should recount these votes, and the Supreme Court is basically going to kind of end this, and George W. Bush will become president, and Al Gore will concede. Didn't make a big fuss out of it, just kind of left. And then we'll continue to really promote global warming, the effects of global warming, and how it's everyone's responsibility to try and help stop it. So we see a lot of tensions in the Middle East during the 90s. Like I said, Bill Clinton, in the video, it talked about how Clinton is going to try and negotiate some peace treaties in the Middle East. So let's watch a short video talking a little bit more about this time period and those tensions.
Moving into 2016, the political tension in the Middle East shows no sign of subsiding. Welcome to Watch Mojo News, the weekly series where we break down news stories that might be on your radar. In this installment, we're counting down 10 crucial facts you should know about the Saudi Arabia-Iran conflict. Number 10. What are the origins of Saudi Arabia's prosperity? Saudi Arabia's oil-based economy is one of the most prominent in the world. The country holds at least 18% of global petroleum reserves and is the planet's largest oil exporter. The petroleum sector accounts for over 90% of Saudi budget revenues. The foundations for these figures were first laid in the early 20th century, when Saudi Arabia struck oil for the first time in 1938. Around the mid-1970s, as a founding member of OPEC and a chief benefactor from rising oil prices post-Arab-Israeli war, Saudi Arabia further established itself as a leading oil producer and is one of the most prosperous Middle Eastern countries. However, that wealth is not spread evenly throughout the country's population. It is instead concentrated within a few super-rich families, while a possible 20% of the population lives well below the poverty line. Number 9. What is at the root of the region's political conflict? Oil has historically proven to be the fuel for political problems in the region, especially between Saudi Arabia and Iran, another major oil producer. The 1979 Iranian Revolution was in part triggered by the early 70s oil boom, with Iran seeking to end US and British influence on its oil industry. The revolution ended with governmental overthrow and the establishment of a new regime under the Grand Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Once productive links with the USA were severed, and for Middle Eastern nations, including Saudi Arabia, Iran became an alarming influence. Number 8. What is the religious divide between Saudi Arabia and Iran? The BBC describes the divide between Sunnis and Shia as, quote, the largest and oldest in the history of Islam, and it's a major component in the current crisis. The vast majority of the world's Muslim population is Sunni, including between 75 and 90% of the Saudi populace. However, Iran is majority Shia and often cites its need to protect other Shia minorities as reason for various political stances. In modern times, the Sunni-Shia divide can be felt across the Middle East and is often considered the primary spark for conflict. However, some commentators believe that the religious split operates as a mask, deflecting attention from other reasons for war.
So as you can see from the video, a lot of this is going to focus on the changing of leadership, the resources that are found in the Middle East. In the 80s, the Soviet Union was in Afghanistan. The U.S. was helping to train the rebel troops to fight against the Soviets. This is going to lead to a lot of tensions between the United States later on and these other groups. We begin to see tensions really rise as we go in through the 1990s. So now we're just going to take a little look at Google and the effects that Google has had. Obviously, Google revolutionized how we search the internet, the ease and the use of the internet. But let's look at the history of Google.
This company's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're taking a look at the history of Google. PhD students Larry Page and Sergey Brin began Google as a research project in January 1996 while attending California's Stanford University. By developing a technology called PageRank, they were able to create a search engine that could estimate a website's importance based on its incoming links. Initially nicknamed Backrub, the Google.com domain name was registered on September 15, 1997, and the company incorporated on September 4th the next year. Its initial public offering came on August 19, 2004, though the founders and then CEO Eric Schmidt remained in control. As a result of the IPO, many of the company's employees became paper millionaires, and this led some to wonder if Google would live by its "Don't be evil" motto. Like many Silicon Valley startups, Google was first based out of a garage. Today, its corporate headquarters is in Mountain View, California. Known as the Googleplex, the offices perpetuate an informal and casual atmosphere. Employees are encouraged to spend 20% of their time on personal interests, and this has led to the creation of services such as Google News and AdSense. Google's most popular service is its online search engine, Google Search. Users employ this tool to look for information by typing keywords into the search bar. The incoming results come from the billions of web pages the company indexes, and the order of the results is partly based on PageRank. Google has expanded its search results and paid listings onto other websites through AdSense. AdSense and AdWords form the engine of Google's multi-billion-dollar revenue machine. Google also offers marketers a free service called Google Analytics, which produces website visitor statistics. Thanks to its innovations, the company is now one of the biggest brokers in the online advertising market. Google Search has branched out to offer other types of services in many different languages as well. These include Google Image Search, Google Video Search, Google Maps, and Google Translate. Google has also released several internet productivity tools. The most well-known of these is Gmail. Gmail was the first free webmail service to maintain emails from the same exchange collectively in a common thread. Gmail was also the first email service to offer users 1 GB of free storage. Today, Gmail offers practically limitless storage for a small fee. Another web productivity tool is Google Docs. This service is comprised of software that allows users to create documents, spreadsheets, and presentations and store them in the cloud. These can be composed and edited via a web browser and can also be accessed by more than one user. This software is considered by some as an attack on one of Microsoft's core businesses. Google has also worked on other projects. Notable ones include the open-source web browser Google Chrome, the mobile operating system Android, and the social networking service Google+. To bolster their mobile efforts, Google also acquired Motorola Mobility in 2011. In addition, Google has acquired other businesses as launching pads for new services. For example, Keyhole Inc. was developed into Google Earth for its 3D view of our planet, and Grand Central was developed into Google Voice. Two of the company's biggest successes through acquisitions have been AdWords through the Applied Semantics deal and the popular video sharing website YouTube. Google also has a charitable arm called Google.org. This not-for-profit organization's main initiatives revolve around developing renewable energy, improving access to health services, and reducing worldwide poverty. Throughout the years of its existence, Google has not been without its detractors. One recurring issue has been privacy. These concerns range from the Gmail program's automatic email scanning to create targeted advertising to the data and image collection of Google Street View. The Google search engine has been criticized for its censorship of search results, and even the company headquarters has been accused of unnecessary energy use. While the company is now facing threats from Apple and Facebook, Google is sure to remain a dominant force in the global internet industry.
So that just shows you a little bit on the background of Google and how Google really revolutionized how we use the internet and email. So question, who in the Clinton administration addressed global warming and climate change? Is that Al Gore or Ted Kennedy? This would be the Inconvenient Truth TED Talk guy. Next question, give me one thing that Clinton focused on during his presidency. Write down one thing that Clinton focused on during his presidency. Next question, why did Al Gore not win the presidency? Why did Al Gore not win the presidency? And that will be the end of our session today. Next time we'll be looking at George W. Bush.